You know what's exhausting? Trying to control everything. Trying to manage every outcome, predict every possibility, force every door open, push every river upstream. We spend so much of our lives white-knuckling our way through existence, convinced that if we just hold on tight enough, if we just plan well enough, if we just worry hard enough, we can somehow bend reality to our will. But here's what I've learned, and here's what I want to share with you right now. You can't control everything, and the moment you truly understand that, the moment you truly accept that, your life begins to transform in ways you never thought possible. There's this beautiful paradox that exists in life. The more you try to control, the more out of control you feel. The tighter you grip, the more slips through your fingers. It's like holding sand in your hand. When you squeeze it tight, it pours out between your fingers. But when you hold your hand open, gently, the sand stays right there. This is the fundamental truth about control that most of us spend decades learning the hard way. Think about all the energy you've spent trying to control things that were never yours to control in the first place. You've tried to control what other people think about you. You've tried to control how your relationships unfold. You've tried to control the timing of your success. You've tried to control outcomes that depend on 1,000 variables you can't even see. And what has all that effort gotten you? Stress, anxiety, sleepless nights, a constant hum of worry running through your mind like background static you can't turn off. But what if I told you there's another way? What if I told you that you could release all of that burden, all of that pressure, all of that exhausting effort to control everything, and instead trust in something greater than yourself? Now, when I say God, I'm not talking about some bearded figure sitting on a cloud judging you. I'm talking about the infinite intelligence that runs through all of life. The force that makes your heart beat without you thinking about it. The power that turns a seed into a flower, that spins the planets in their orbits, that orchestrates the entire universe with perfect precision. Call it God, call it the universe, call it source, call it the Tao, call it whatever resonates with you. The name doesn't matter. What matters is recognizing that there's an intelligence far greater than your ego's need to control, and when you align with it, when you surrender to it, miracles happen. Surrender is not giving up. Let me say that again, because this is where so many people get confused. Surrender is not giving up. Surrender is not passive. Surrender is not about becoming a doormat or abandoning your dreams or sitting around waiting for life to happen to you. Surrender is about releasing your attachment to how things should unfold while remaining fully engaged in the present moment. It's about doing your best, taking inspired action, and then trusting that what's meant for you will come to you in the perfect way at the perfect time. You see, there are really only two things in life that you have genuine control over: your thoughts and your actions. That's it. Everything else is outside your sphere of control. You don't control the weather. You don't control the stock market. You don't control whether someone loves you back. You don't control if you get that job. You don't control your neighbor's behavior. You don't control the traffic. You don't control how your body ages. You don't control most of what happens in this world. But you do control how you think about it, and you do control what you do in response to it. When you understand this distinction, when you really get clear about what's in your control and what isn't, something shifts inside you. You stop wasting energy on things you can't change. You stop arguing with reality. You stop living in constant resistance to what is. And in that space of acceptance, in that space of surrender, you find peace, real peace. Not the fake peace that comes from finally controlling something, but the deep, unshakable peace that comes from knowing you're being guided by something far wiser than your worried mind. Let me tell you something about the ego. The ego loves control. The ego believes that you are separate from everything else, that you're alone in this world, that if you don't control everything, you'll be destroyed. The ego is like a frightened child who thinks that gripping the steering wheel tighter will somehow make the road less bumpy. But the truth is, you're not separate. You're not alone. You're not driving this car by yourself. You're part of something infinite, something eternal, something that has your back in ways you can't even comprehend. When you try to control everything, you're operating from ego. You're operating from fear. You're saying to the universe, I don't trust you. I don't trust that you know what you're doing. I have to take over here because clearly you're going to mess this up. But when you surrender, when you release control, you're operating from your higher self. You're operating from faith. You're saying, I trust that there's a greater plan here. I trust that I'm being guided. I trust that even when things don't go the way I planned, they're going exactly the way they need to go. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. But what about responsibility? What about working hard? What about going after my goals? And I'm saying yes to all of that, absolutely yes. You should work hard. You should set goals. You should take action. But there's a difference between taking action from a place of trust versus taking action from a place of fear. When you're coming from trust, you work hard because it feels good to contribute, to create, to express yourself. When you're coming from fear, you work hard because you're trying to force a specific outcome, because you're terrified of what will happen if you don't succeed, because you believe your worth depends on achieving that one thing. The universe responds differently to these two energies. When you're trying to force and control, you create resistance. Doors stay closed. Things feel difficult. You push and push and push, and it's like swimming against the current. But when you surrender, when you align with the flow of life, when you do your part and then trust God to do His part, things start to happen in ways you could never have orchestrated yourself. Opportunities appear out of nowhere. The right people show up at the right time. Solutions present themselves. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. I've seen this in my own life more times than I can count. The times when I've been most anxious, most controlling, most convinced that I had to make something happen, those were the times when nothing worked. I'd plan and scheme and manipulate and force, and it was like pushing a boulder up a hill. But the times when I've surrendered, when I've said, okay, I've done my best, and now I'm going to trust that this will work out for my highest good. Those were the times when magic happened. Those were the times when opportunities came that were better than anything I could have planned. Here's a simple truth. Your ego doesn't know what's best for you. Your ego only knows what it wants right now in this moment, based on its limited understanding of reality. But God, the universe, source, this infinite intelligence, it sees everything. It sees the bigger picture. It sees 10 years down the road. It sees the lessons you need to learn. It sees the person you're becoming. It sees connections and possibilities that your mind could never calculate. So when you surrender to this greater intelligence, you're not giving up control, you're actually gaining access to a wisdom far beyond your own. Think about it this way. Have you ever looked back at something that didn't work out, something you desperately wanted that you didn't get, and realized later that it was actually the best thing that could have happened? Maybe you didn't get that job, and then a better opportunity came along. Maybe that relationship ended, and then you met someone who was actually right for you. Maybe you got sick and it forced you to slow down and reassess your whole life. In the moment, it felt like everything was falling apart. But in hindsight, you can see that everything was actually falling into place. That's how surrender works. When you release your grip on how things should be and trust that things are unfolding exactly as they need to, you give life permission to surprise you. You give God room to work miracles. You open yourself up to possibilities you never would have considered because you were so fixated on your one specific outcome. And here's something beautiful that happens when you start to live this way. You stop suffering. So much of our suffering comes not from what happens to us, but from our resistance to what happens to us. We think things should be different. We think we should have gotten that promotion. We think our kids should behave a certain way. We think our bodies should look different. We think the world should be fairer. And all of that thinking, all of that shoulding on ourselves and others creates pain. But when you surrender, when you accept what is, when you stop fighting reality, the suffering dissolves. You might still experience pain, you might still face challenges, but you're no longer adding that extra layer of suffering that comes from wishing things were different than they are. This doesn't mean you become passive or complacent. You can accept what is while still working to improve things. You can acknowledge that something is difficult while still taking steps to change it. But you do it from a place of peace instead of a place of resistance. You do it because it's aligned with your values and your purpose, not because you're desperately trying to control an outcome. Let me share something with you about worry. Worry is the ego's attempt to control the future by thinking about it obsessively in the present. We worry because we believe that if we think about something enough, if we play out every possible scenario, we can somehow prevent bad things from happening. But has worry ever actually prevented anything? Has anxiety ever solved a problem? No. All worry does is make you suffer through something twice, once in your mind and once in reality if it actually happens. And most of the things we worry about never even happen. When you surrender worry to God, when you say, I'm going to do my best today and I'm going to trust that I'm being taken care of, you free up an enormous amount of energy. Energy that was going into worry can now go into creativity, into love, into joy, into actually living your life instead of constantly rehearsing disasters in your mind. There's a practice I want to share with you. It's very simple, but it's profoundly powerful. Whenever you notice yourself trying to control something that's outside your control, whenever you feel that tension, that anxiety, that desperate need to make something happen, pause, take a breath, and then say either out loud or in your mind, I release this to God. I trust that I'm being guided. I trust that this is unfolding for my highest good. And then consciously let it go. Feel the tension leaving your body. Feel your shoulders drop. Feel your jaw unclench. Release the burden you've been carrying that was never yours to carry in the first place. At first, your ego will fight this. Your ego will say, but if I don't control this, everything will fall apart. Your ego will come up with 1,000 reasons why you need to hold on tight. But gently, patiently, keep releasing, keep surrendering, keep trusting, and over time, you'll start to see evidence that you really are being taken care of. You'll start to notice how things work out in ways you never expected. You'll start to feel lighter, freer, more at peace. And here's something really important. Surrendering to God doesn't mean you don't have preferences. It doesn't mean you can't want things. It doesn't mean you shouldn't set goals or have dreams. You can absolutely have preferences. You can absolutely work toward what you want. But you hold those preferences lightly. You're not attached. You're saying, this is what I'd like to happen, but I trust that if something different happens, it's because there's something even better in store for me, or there's a lesson I need to learn, or the timing isn't right yet. This is the difference between intention and attachment. Intention is saying, I'd like to create this in my life, and I'm going to take action toward it. Attachment is saying, I must have this specific thing in this specific way at this specific time, or I won't be okay. Intention keeps you focused and motivated. Attachment makes you suffer. When you combine clear intention with surrender to outcomes, you become unstoppable. You take powerful action without being paralyzed by fear of failure. You go after what you want while remaining open to what actually shows up. Let me tell you about faith. Real faith isn't believing that God will give you exactly what you want when you want it. Real faith is trusting that God knows what you need better than you do, and that everything is working out for your highest good even when it doesn't look like it. Real faith is being able to say, I don't understand why this is happening, but I trust that there's a reason. Real faith is continuing to show up, continuing to do your best, continuing to choose love, even when circumstances seem to suggest you should give up. And here's what faith does. It transforms your relationship with uncertainty. Most people are terrified of uncertainty. They want guarantees. They want to know how things will turn out before they take action. But life doesn't work that way. Life is fundamentally uncertain. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't even know what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes. But when you have faith, when you trust that you're being guided, uncertainty becomes exciting instead of terrifying. It becomes an adventure instead of a threat. You start to see challenges differently when you surrender. Instead of thinking, why is this happening to me? You start asking, what is this trying to teach me? Instead of resisting difficult situations, you lean into them, curious about what they're revealing. You start to understand that obstacles aren't punishments, they're opportunities. They're opportunities to grow, to develop strength, to discover resources within yourself you didn't know you had. And when you stop trying to control everything, you become more present. Think about it. When you're constantly worrying about the future or trying to manipulate outcomes, you're not here now. You're living in some imaginary future that hasn't happened yet and might never happen. But when you surrender, when you trust that the future is being taken care of, you can actually be here, right now, in this moment, which is the only moment you actually have. This moment is where life happens. This moment is where joy exists. This moment is where love is available. This moment is where peace lives. But you can't experience any of that if you're too busy controlling, planning, worrying, forcing. Surrender brings you back to now, and now is actually pretty beautiful when you're paying attention to it. Let me tell you something about miracles. Miracles happen all the time, but we miss them because we're too busy trying to control things. A miracle is simply a shift in perception, a moment when you see something from love instead of fear, from trust instead of control. When you surrender, you open yourself up to constant miracles. You start to notice synchronicities. You start to see how everything is connected. You start to recognize the hand of God in the smallest details of your life. And you know what else happens when you surrender? Your relationships improve. Think about how much conflict in relationships comes from trying to control the other person, trying to make them behave the way you want them to behave, trying to change them, trying to make them understand your point of view. But when you surrender, when you release your need to control how others show up, you can actually love them as they are. You can accept them. You can let them be on their own journey while you focus on your own. This doesn't mean you tolerate abuse or stay in situations that don't serve you. It means you release the burden of trying to change people who don't want to change. It means you focus on controlling your own thoughts and actions, and you let others be responsible for theirs. It means you love without attachment, support without enabling, care without controlling. And your relationship with yourself improves too. So much self-criticism comes from the ego's belief that you should be different than you are. You should be more successful. You should be thinner. You should be more disciplined. You should be further along. But when you surrender to where you are right now, when you accept yourself exactly as you are in this moment while still being open to growth, you stop beating yourself up. You stop living in that constant state of not good enough. You recognize that you're doing the best you can with what you know right now, and that's enough. Here's a powerful truth. You are not behind. You're not ahead. You're exactly where you need to be. Every experience you've had, including the painful ones, especially the painful ones, has brought you to this moment. Every mistake has been a teacher. Every failure has been a redirection. Every closed door has led you toward an open one. When you trust this, when you surrender to the idea that your life is unfolding exactly as it should, you stop comparing yourself to others. You stop feeling like you need to rush. You stop feeling like you're running out of time. God's timing is perfect. It's not your timing, which is usually right now, but it's perfect. Things come to you when you're ready for them. Opportunities appear when you've learned what you needed to learn to handle them. People enter your life when you're vibrating at the frequency that attracts them. When you surrender to divine timing, you stop forcing things before they're ready to happen. You stop picking fruit before it's ripe. You allow things to mature, to develop, to ripen in their own time. And this brings me to something really important, the difference between surrender and resignation. Resignation is giving up. It's saying nothing matters, so why bother? It's coming from a place of defeat and hopelessness. Surrender is the opposite. Surrender is empowering. It's saying, I'm going to do everything I can do, and then I'm going to trust that the universe will handle the rest. It's coming from a place of faith and confidence in a power greater than yourself. When you resign, you stop trying. When you surrender, you try with everything you have, but you're not attached to the results. You put in the effort because the effort itself is meaningful, because taking action is how you express your values and your purpose, not because you're guaranteed a specific outcome. This is how you avoid burnout. This is how you sustain your energy over the long haul. You work hard, you give your best, and then you let go and trust. Now, let's talk about what happens when things don't go the way you want them to, because they won't. Life will throw you curveballs. You will face disappointments. You will experience losses. Things will fall apart. And in those moments, surrender becomes even more important. In those moments, you have a choice. You can shake your fist at the sky and demand to know why this is happening to you. You can sink into bitterness and resentment. You can close your heart and decide that life is cruel and random, or you can surrender. You can say, I don't understand this, but I trust that there's a reason. I trust that something good can come from this. I trust that I'm strong enough to handle this. And when you choose surrender in the face of difficulty, something remarkable happens. You discover a strength you didn't know you had. You find resources within yourself that were dormant until they were needed. You grow in ways you never would have grown if everything had gone smoothly. You develop compassion for others who are struggling. You gain wisdom. You become more fully yourself. Every spiritual tradition teaches this in some form. Let go, release, surrender, trust, have faith. And there's a reason every tradition teaches this, because it works. Because it's true. Because this is how life actually operates. You can either flow with the river or fight against it. And fighting is exhausting. Flowing is effortless. But flowing doesn't mean you're passive. Rivers are incredibly powerful. Water moving with gravity instead of against it can carve through mountains given enough time. When you align yourself with the flow of life, when you surrender to God's will instead of insisting on your own, you become powerful in a way that forcing and controlling could never make you. You become a channel for something greater than yourself to move through you. And this is when you start to experience what it means to be truly alive. When you're not spending all your energy trying to control everything, you have energy available for creativity, for joy, for love, for wonder. You notice the sunset. You appreciate the smile of a stranger. You feel gratitude for the small things. You're present with the people you love. You're engaged with your work not because you're trying to prove something, but because it's an expression of who you are. Life becomes lighter when you surrender. Problems that seemed overwhelming become manageable. Challenges that seemed insurmountable become interesting puzzles. Uncertainty that seemed terrifying becomes full of possibility. And you start to realize that you never had to carry all that weight. You were always being held. You were always being guided. You were always exactly where you needed to be. So how do you practice surrender in your daily life? You start small. You start with the little things. When you're stuck in traffic, instead of getting angry and frustrated, you surrender. You say, okay, I'm here now. I might as well make the best of it. When someone criticizes you, instead of getting defensive and trying to control their opinion, you surrender. You say, they're entitled to their perspective. I know my truth. When your plans get disrupted, instead of falling apart, you surrender. You say, okay, what's the opportunity here? Every time you choose surrender over control, you're building a new habit. You're training yourself to trust. You're strengthening your faith. And over time, surrender becomes your default response instead of control. You start to automatically release things that are outside your control. You start to naturally trust that things are working out. You start to feel that peace more often than you feel that anxiety. And here's the beautiful part. As you change, as you learn to surrender, the people around you notice. You become calmer, you become easier to be around, you become more present, you become more loving. And your example gives others permission to surrender too. You show them that it's possible to live without constantly trying to control everything. You show them that faith is more powerful than fear. You show them what peace looks like. This is your invitation. This is your moment. Right now, you can make a choice. You can continue trying to control everything, white-knuckling your way through life, exhausting yourself with worry and anxiety, and the impossible task of managing every detail of existence. Or you can release it. You can let go. You can surrender to God, to the universe, to the infinite intelligence that runs through all of life. You can trust that you're being guided, that you're being held, that you're being taken care of. And I promise you, when you make that choice, when you really commit to surrender, your life will transform, not overnight. This is a practice. This is a journey. But with each choice to release instead of control, with each moment of trust instead of fear, you'll feel lighter, you'll feel freer, you'll feel more alive. You don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know how it's all going to work out. You just have to do your best today, in this moment, and trust that the rest is being handled. You just have to show up, be present, take the action that's in front of you, and release the results. God didn't put you here to struggle alone. God didn't create you to carry burdens you were never meant to carry. You're part of something infinite. You're connected to a power that knows exactly what you need and exactly when you need it. You're loved beyond measure. You're supported in ways you can't even see. And when you surrender, when you really let go and trust, you start to feel that support. You start to sense that love. You start to know in your bones that you're not alone. So take a breath. Feel your body in this chair. Notice the sounds around you. Come into this present moment and make a commitment to yourself right now. Commit to releasing just one thing you've been trying to control. Just one. It might be a relationship. It might be an outcome you've been attached to. It might be a worry you've been carrying. Whatever it is, release it. Say out loud or in your mind, I release this to God. I trust that I'm being guided. I trust that this is working out for my highest good. And then notice how you feel. Notice if there's even just a tiny bit of relief, a little bit of lightness, a small sense of peace. That's what surrender feels like. And you can have more of that. You can live from that place. You just have to keep choosing it, keep releasing, keep trusting, keep surrendering. Your life is not meant to be a struggle. It's meant to be an adventure. It's meant to be filled with joy and love and wonder and growth. And all of that is available to you the moment you stop trying to control everything and start trusting that you're being led. The moment you open your hands and release your grip on how things should be and allow them to be as they are, the moment you say yes to life instead of fighting it. This is the path to peace. This is the path to freedom. This is the path to living as your highest self. Not controlling, not forcing, not manipulating, but trusting, flowing, surrendering. Doing your part and letting God do His part. Taking action from inspiration instead of desperation. Living from faith instead of fear. You've been trying to do it all yourself for long enough. You've been carrying weight that was never yours to carry, and now it's time to put it down. It's time to release. It's time to trust. It's time to surrender. Not because you're giving up, but because you're ready to step into something greater. Because you're ready to align with the flow of life instead of fighting against it. Because you're ready to experience what it feels like to be supported by the universe instead of feeling like you have to support everything yourself. This is your life. This is your one precious life. And you get to choose how you live it. You can spend it trying to control everything, or you can spend it trusting, loving, creating, experiencing. The choice is yours. But I'm here to tell you, having walked this path myself, having learned this lesson the hard way more times than I can count, surrender is the answer. Release is the key. Trust is the door that opens to everything you've been looking for. So let go. Right now, just let go. Feel what it's like to release your grip. Feel what it's like to trust. Feel what it's like to surrender. And then do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. Keep choosing surrender over control. Keep choosing faith over fear. Keep choosing trust over worry. And watch what happens. Watch how your life transforms. Watch how peace becomes your natural state. Watch how miracles become ordinary. Watch how you become who you were always meant to be. You are so much more than your ego's need to control. You are connected to something infinite. You are guided by something wise. You are loved by something unconditional. And when you surrender to that, when you really trust that, everything changes. Everything becomes possible. Everything becomes beautiful. Even the hard things. Even the challenges. Even the times when things don't go your way. Because you know deep in your soul that it's all part of your journey. It's all serving your growth. It's all leading you exactly where you need to go. So breathe, trust, release, surrender, and know that you're exactly where you need to be right now in this moment. Everything that has happened has brought you here. Everything that will happen will continue to guide you forward. You don't have to control it. You just have to show up for it. You just have to stay open to it. You just have to trust that you're being led. This is the truth that will set you free. This is the practice that will transform your life. This is the path to peace. Release control. Trust God. Surrender to the flow of life. And watch as everything you've been searching for starts to find you.